Terrorists. Christian Whiton is a former State Department senior advisor. Lieutenant Colonel Bill Cowan is a Fox News military analyst. They both join us now. Colonel, I'm going to start with you. Are you surprised that this happened, given there seemed to be some stalling, given al-Qaeda, given his conversion?
I'm not surprised, because I think that's the nature of the enemy that we're dealing with. But people need to remember that this young man had converted to Islam. So that tells us, again, the brutality of the people that we're dealing with here, Melissa. They've killed fellow Muslims, Shiites, Sunnis, Turkmen, Yazidis, Christians, Kurds, you name it, as they've marched across the area that they've controlled. And I think we need to be worried about the other prisoners that they have.
Christian, you know, they say there are some differences in the way this tape was shot that may signal that they are more on the run. Do you agree with that?
Well, there are definitely differences. They don't show the whole act of his decapitation and the events leading right up to that. They just show a gruesome before and after. We're just guessing. This is just speculation. But, you know, Mr. Kassig was someone who had Ranger training. He may not have gone along with what they wanted. Maybe they wanted some sort of confession or groveling, and he may not have given it to these savages. But, again, that's just a guess.
Yeah. At the suggestion of U.S. Central Command, Secretary of Defense Chuck Hagel says the U.S. is going to speed up its training for Iraqi forces. Meanwhile, 1,500 more U.S. troops are awaiting deployment in the area. Colonel Cowan, what do you think of those facts? Do you think it will help? Is it enough?
Well, it's got to help some, Melissa, but we are so far behind the power curve in trying to get the Iraqis stood up and out there and fighting ISIS. We need to remember that every day that ISIS isn't confronted directly and decisively, they continue to consolidate the ground that they hold, the population that they control, and it makes the long-term prospects of fighting them effectively much, much more difficult. We're doing the right thing, but slowly, and I think we're also still waiting to get our coalition partners all signed up. There's just too many uncertainties out there about what our other partners are going to do and how much we're going to do on a timely manner.
Well, Christian, I mean, what about that? Why aren't we getting more folks signing up to join at our side?
Because we don't actually have a strategy for victory, and it's very difficult to ask people who are closer to the enemy to take risks if we don't. Who do we want to run Syria? That is something that neither Obama on the left or McCain on the right can answer. And do we really expect the Sunni tribes that are being dominated today by ISIS to rise up only to come under the power of Shiite-dominated Iraqi government, basically to hand themselves over to Iran? We need to go back and reprise what was so successful in that 2007 surge of activating Sunni tribes. But doing that means recognizing that Iraq is now 3 different countries, that Sunni Iraq is never going to be part of post-World War I Iraq again, and that's someone no one in Washington seems able to do.
Yeah. Since the started in August, we've spent upwards of $800 million. Do you think that's money well spent, Colonel Cowan?
Well, it probably is, because we've had a little bit of effect against ISIS, but I think it's the tip of the iceberg, Melissa. I think we've probably spent an incredible amount even since then. We haven't even begun to talk about the equipment, the ammunition, the supplies, the gear, the things we have to replace that the Iraqi forces lost. So if we're going to be in this for the long term, it's going to cost us an incredible amount of money to turn on an effective fighting force, whether it be the Kurds, the Iraqis, the Free Syrian Army, whatever it is. We have a long way to go and a lot of money to get there.
Yeah, Christian, I mean, the show's called Money, so I got to ask you about that. The Iraq War cost about $2 trillion over the course of a decade. What do you think we're in for here?
It's impossible to tell, and frankly, if we have no strategy for victory, if the president can't explain what we're really doing there, then a single dollar in a single American life is too much. But if we're in it to win it, if we know who we want to kill and who we want to win, then we should use the Kennedy model of paying any price and bearing any burden. And, you know, these wars are expensive, but go back to Iraq and Afghanistan. If you look in the 10 years after them, it was actually closer to $1 or $1.5 trillion, but that was during a decade when we spent more than $30 trillion in Washington. So expensive, yes, but driving the deficit, not really.
Thanks to both of you.